For a long time, I was really afraid. I was afraid to share who I was, to be myself, particularly in public. And I was afraid to be myself to myself in my own private space. When I had first come out as trans, that was like a really difficult time for me, and it was particularly difficult because I didn't have access to any kind of narratives that were similar to mine when I came out. And so that made it really difficult to navigate my space, my transition, navigate how to engage with friends and family, how to navigate my workspace. And I then made a very deliberate decision to be transparent and be open about my transition, my social transition, my medical transition, to give narratives like mine voice and to make narratives like mine more accessible to people like me. Fairly recently, somebody had said something to me that I wish somebody told me when I was trying to figure things out. And they said to me that it gets better. And that was something that I wish I had heard, because for a long time I didn't believe that. Trans women, to a degree, were represented as men playing dress up. And I think that constant narrative stuck with a lot of people. And so suddenly when you met somebody who was trans, that was the perception that people had of us. I think that's a very hard barrier to break. To a large degree, how trans women are represented in media spaces, in magazines, in film, in television, on platforms like YouTube, or that matters. I think we need more authentic representation of trans women and trans men and non-binary persons in media more broadly. So there's a lot of work that we need to do, a lot of work to destigmatize and to undo that very damaging image of us that had been, I think, portrayed for a very long time. Like, we are real women, we are real human beings, and we have been around since the dawn of time. I think I've always had the view that women's voices and women's experiences were, to a large degree, ignored for a very long time. They still are today to a large degree. Women need their own spaces to craft out safe spaces for each other, to also be more, let's call it, to be more included and more highlighted in places like your workspace. When we talk about access to starting businesses, when we talk about women empowerment in that kind of space, which is always a weird concept when I find nobody it sounds weird when you say something like, oh, this is, it's male empowerment, or it's like, I think like when we use the prefix women in front of it, it just sounds so weird to me. Because why shouldn't women just already be afforded that space immediately without having us to necessarily advocate for that or to put our foot down in demanding that effectively? So women's, I think for me in my advocacy spaces, women really need to be placed at the forefront of conversations, whether those conversations involve women or not. For a large part of history, I think men had made all the decisions for women, how women should behave, what they should wear, what kind of jobs they should occupy, where they fit into in the family dynamic. Generally speaking, I don't think South Africa is a safe place for women at all, whether you're cis or you're trans. Specifically talking to trans women in South Africa, laid on top of all of the complications around being a woman and trying to just survive, trans women struggle to access basic services, things like education, shelter, healthcare. So the thing I would say to trans women who are trying to find their place in the world, I guess, would be the same thing that I say to myself, or that I would have liked somebody to say to me a few years ago, that there is space for you, like you've been here, and that there is a community that sees you, and we are working really, really hard to have our voices heard, to have our space crafted out in a society that had for a long time pushed us aside. So there is place for you.